Michel Foucault's Discipline and Punish is a text about the evolution of punishment, primarily from the 18th century to post-modernity, the loosely defined period Foucault is writing in. The 18th century marked a huge moment in the evolution of how we conceive of criminal justice. This change, however, coincides with a massive growth in the control institutions have over the individual. Foucault looks at an execution that took place midway through the 18th century. It's fucking disgusting. There's blood everywhere, the guy gets his nuts ripped off, he gets shitted on by everyone, and then we look at the prison 80 years later, and we see a timetable for inmates at a prison, and it's real sleepy boy hours. They have playtime, they even eat lunch. It's real soft, cozy shit. Both of these things represent a shift in our theoretical understanding of criminal justice within a 100-year period. What a change. We've become soft. We don't torture or kill criminals anymore. Instead, we put them away to be adjusted and rehabilitated. This change is what Foucault sees as significant. We may punish less, but we punish better. This new form of punishment insistent on adjustment and rehabilitation leaves the prison system and begins governing all of society. Now all our institutions are prisons. In this way, we are still all getting shitted on. Let's explain. Since the 18th century, we have seen many things disappear in how we punish criminals. Not only are these changes in sentencing, but the very technology of power and punishment as a political and social function. For instance, we see the disappearance of torture. People start thinking, maybe we shouldn't tear this guy apart by horses, or boil this person alive, or rip this guy's nuts off and tear his colon inside out and shit all over him. But around the 1840s, those that are executed, even heinously, are no longer executed in public. Punishment as a spectacle disappears. The condemned are taken out of the view of the public eye and put within the walls of the prison. Even prison labour, where inmates would repair roads and buildings in ball and chain, not as much to stop them escaping, but so they wouldn't retaliate against citizens who had come to shame them and throw food at them, even this would be abandoned by the end of the 19th century. Now criminals don't fear the brutality of being punished, but the certainty of it, of being put away. Punishment is made a secret between the law and the criminal. It's real spooky shit. You don't know what they're doing in there. They could be putting you through the shit they do in astronaut training. They could have roller coasters of death. It's too spooky for you. Punishment then, to law-abiding citizens like you and I, is now an abstraction. Before modernity, the focus was on the crime, but that focus has long since shifted onto the criminal. The tortured soul of the criminal is even idolized now and seen as worthy of admiration. This shift is highlighted by the introduction of criminal psychiatry into the legal system. Instead of what act has been committed and should it be punished, the act must also be assigned a causal process, whether it be environmental, unconscious, or hereditary. Was the act a psychotic reaction, a delusional episode, a perverse action? The question is now, what level of reality does the act belong to? And so the assertion of guilt has been turned into a strange scientifico-juridical complex with a whole new set of assessing, diagnostic, prognostic, and normative criteria regarding how we judge the criminal, not the crime. This is most evidenced by the evolution of questions of madness and insanity, how for some time now it has been impossible to be both mad and guilty, warranting a whole array of examinations in the legal process. All of this suggests a change in what the subject of punishment actually is. In the torturous executions of pre-modernity, punishment was inflicted on the body. Today, it is inflicted on the soul, the inner self of the criminal, the agency behind the act. Punishment is focused on the character of the criminal. Mens rea is privileged above actus reus. The body today is conceptualized as an entity carrying human rights and other inner forces that have become the real subject of interest for the criminal justice system. So we essentially changed our minds on the purpose of punishment as a whole. We now seek to diagnose, correct, adjust, standardize, and normalize rather than enact retribution and revenge. In a word, we have become ashamed that we punish. Not only do we want no one to see us punish vis-a-vis the death of punishment as spectacle, but we want to make it as quick as possible, minimizing contact with the body. When the guillotine is introduced in France, it only makes contact with the condemned for a quick instant, while the executioner doesn't need to collide his axe or sword with the condemned at all. It's like the executioner is removed from the picture, only needing to pull a lever. Likewise, the only places left today that execute people in the West use the lethal injection, solely because pain is eliminated entirely. We couldn't dare inflict pain on a criminal. The self-loathing would be too much to bear. Then the executioner is replaced with doctors, psychiatrists, chaplains, and warders, because the body is only relevant insofar as it harbors a soul and inner mental entities. With all these new characters introduced, the judge is no longer the only one passing judgment. Punishment is made more and more informal. Before, it was one erect, solid monument. Now it has been stretched out into a thin veil that coats everything and is harder to identify as one uniform act. But knowing this, Foucault argues the model of the prison is then shifted onto society. These changes in the criminal justice system correlated with changes in the very technology of power. These changes initiated vast spaces of enclosures that we are pushed through our whole lives. We are wages for the preschool, then the university, then the office space, then the nursing home, maybe the hospital or maybe the prison, but in all cases the individual never ceases passing from one closed environment to another. The memes predict that these enclosures are short from becoming cages, like the pictured Weiji Cage 9000, with its reinforced cage frame, razor wire wrappings, cage lock that can only be opened by foremen, and emergency bathroom light that is often ignored. In all these human enclosures, we are subject to constant adjustment, normalization, and standardization. We are corrected just like criminals. These enclosures are institutions modeling themselves off the prison. Before, under monarchies and sovereigns, power was formalized and it existed to tax, to organize production, to rule on life. These very clear, measurable, conscious decisions made in full view. Now power is informal and unconscious. It is hidden behind this curtain and distributed across all things. While unlike the sovereigns who seem to govern with a certain calmness, the administrators of today's society are busybodies, suffering a constant anxiety, always announcing that new reforms are necessary. Now disciplinary systems don't just check if we are breaking the law or not, but are instead focused on detailing and enforcing norms. Standards are now set to education, to the workplace, to what we say on social media, and so on. Like a prison, today's institutions are fixed on overcoding us, as if our bodies are in constant need of modulation. If we say certain words, think the wrong way, the code is wrong and needs to be rewritten. Societies such as ours are known as societies of control, while those before were societies of discipline. The old rulers were like Zeus with his lightning bolt, enacting power in clearly definable bursts of energy. Today's rulers are like the Wadjet, to use another mythological example, a cobra with the head of a woman entwined and entangled around a staff. Deleuze, in Postscript of Societies of Control, uses the example of a serpent. Power is executed like a serpent, constricting us, as if it's spread out across every aspect of life, and we can never leave the enclosure to breathe, like we are being constricted. Just like prisoners, we all have a ring to kiss, standards to meet, and if we don't meet them, we need to be adjusted to them, we need to be reformed. The institutions have appropriated the same ideals as the prison system. The fact that we are now examined by all these institutions our whole lives, we are sent from the hospital when we are born, to the preschool, to the university, to the factory or the office space, to the retirement home. These are containment facilities that control us with the goal of adjusting our behavior, to have more power over us and control us in ways we never were before. In today's society, we are all gamers, which says a lot.